Did you know that the federal government is different from federalism? Well, if not, you're going to find out today. So let's get started. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Virtual History 360. I'm Mr. Wade, and we are talking about federalism today. This is the plan laid out in the Constitution for how our government should be set up for the whole country. We will get to the why at the end of the video, but let's start with what federalism is. By definition, federalism is the system of government where authority is divided between two separate sovereign levels of government. Well, what does sovereign mean? Well, in this case, it is referring to different levels of government that act independently of one another. This does not mean that they do not work together at all, but rather that they get to control their own affairs. How does that look in the United States? Well, the states get to do some things, while the national government gets to do others. In fact, there are three types of powers that you need to know about when talking about federalism, and those are enumerated, reserved, and concurrent powers. Let's take a look at each one. The first is enumerated, and this is talking about powers of the national government. You can also use the terms delegated or expressed because these are the powers that are given to the national government in the Constitution. Some examples of these would be printing money, regulating trade, maintaining the armed forces, conducting foreign relations, and declaring war. Think about these. Would you want the state of Florida handling any of those situations differently than other states? Can you imagine Florida trading with England, and if that deal goes bad, then England not trading with Georgia? Now that is a simple example, but I hope that it makes it easy to understand. The same with printing money. Isn't it nice that money has the same value from state to state? Road trips would be a lot more stressful if that were not the case. But here's the thing. Do you think that someone in 1787 could predict all of the issues that would come up in the future? Of course not. But the framers of our Constitution were pretty smart, and they put a plan in place for any unforeseen problems the country may face in the future. This plan is known as the Necessary and Proper Clause. Found in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, it reads that Congress has the power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. What this means is that if the time arises when the national government needs to do something but does not have the expressed authority to do so, they can use this clause as an implied power. For example, the Constitution does not say anything about creating interstate highways, but in order to regulate commerce, they deemed it necessary. Now, I hope I'm helping you understand history just a little bit better, so please consider subscribing to keep up with my newer videos. And also check out the awesome history merchandise found in my Teespring store. I have shirts, hoodies, masks. Check it out. I'm going to put a link in the description for you. Back to federalism. So, the expressed and implied powers I just talked about are for the national government. The reason this can get confusing is because the national government is also called the federal government. So, do your best to keep the two ideas separate. Today we are focused on federalism. So, now that we have talked about the central government's power, we can talk about the state level. We call the powers reserved to the states the reserved powers. Makes sense, right? They get their name from the 10th Amendment, which says, and I quote, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively." Believe it or not, but these powers and actions at the state and local level have a much bigger impact on your day-to-day life than the decisions made at the national level. That is why all elections are so important. I know the presidential election gets all of the TV coverage, but it is the decision makers at the local and state level that are really crafting the legislation that has the direct impact on the area that you live in. Some examples of reserved powers are to establish public schools, pass license requirements for different professions like teachers or barbers, regulate alcoholic beverages, regulate gun laws, and, really big, the states are the ones who conduct elections, even the big ones, even the one for president. Each state gets to decide their own or their individual process for how the election is managed. See what I mean? You see why I said local elections are so important? With the two definitions I just gave you, it makes the government sound really simple, doesn't it? I mean, the powers seem evenly split, and that's it, right? No, there are some things that both the state and national governments can do. They both have the power to do the same things in some instances, and these are called concurrent powers. Concurrent means shared. Some examples of concurrent powers would be, collecting taxes and establishing courts. Think about it for a second. If you have a job, you pay a federal income tax thanks to that 16th Amendment, and most states have a state income tax. Now, but Florida is not one of them. Florida makes its money off the tourist industry. They make their money from sales tax. So here's an example. You go to a store, you want to buy a drink. Drink costs $1, you go to the counter, they tell you it's going to be $1.07. Well, that extra 7 cents, that's sales tax for the state or county where you bought the drink from. And for courts, there are local courts, there are state courts, there are federal courts. Depending on the offense will determine which court you go to. But either way, you see that some things are done by the state and national governments because the powers are shared. The powers are concurrent. So, back to the question I asked at the beginning of the video. Why do you think, or why did the framers of our Constitution create a system like this? It was all about balance. You have to remember, we fought a war to do away with a super strong central power in the king, but replaced it with a very, very weak central government with the Articles of Confederation. So this Constitution was designed to find a middle ground between the two. Federalism allowed the central government to, have more power than the Articles allowed, but Federalism also gave the states enough control so that they could control themselves. So that's why we use federalism. Tell you what, leave a comment below telling me what you think of our system of federalism. Do you think our system works? Let me know. And while you're there, go ahead and hit that like button for me. I love the engagement. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. If that button's red, let's turn it gray. And be sure to check out my other videos like the ones you see to the side over here. I have other history videos. I have world history videos, U.S. history videos, civics videos, government, stuff like this. I even have videos shot in 360 that you can look all the way around. So make sure you check them out because I know you're going to like them. All right? So for Virtual History 360, I'm Mr. Wade. I'll see you next time.